How to make a stackable cube Mossarium. I'm using this box that's made to hold candy. The lid sits snugly on top of the box, so this should work really well for a terrarium. Here I am adding a thin drainage layer. I'm using gravel, but you can also use sand. Make sure the drainage layer is nice and even. Make sure the drainage layers are slightly sloped to the back of the terrarium. Now that that's done, we'll be moving on to the substrate barrier. This size of a terrarium, we'll be using sphagnum moss as the substrate barrier instead of weed barrier or window screen mesh. Now we move on to the next step. The substrate. This is the substrate mix I use in almost all of my videos for making terrariums. If you want to make the substrate for yourself, I will leave the ingredients and the measurements down in the description. When you're done adding enough substrate, you want to slope it up to the back just like the drainage layer. This will later provide depth in the terrarium. Here is what it looks like so far. To add a little bit more interest to the terrarium, I'm adding the small stone I found outside. Small pieces of gravel could also work for this. I'm also adding a small piece of wood or stick to the terrarium too. I have to move them around however it feels right until I get the one I'm looking for. I'm just going to go with this. The next one will have a large piece of wood in the center of the terrarium. I'm moving it around just like the other one to find the best fit. I'm also going to add some small pieces of gravel into the terrarium too. The next one is similar to the last one. I'm using another piece of wood and then also some small gravel, and I'm just going to stick it wherever it feels right. Now it's time to add the moss. The moss I'm using is cushion moss or Leucobryum glaucum. I'm cutting the pieces up so they can grow more spread out rather than big clumps in the terrarium. And for the next one, I will be repeating the exact same step that I did with the last one, which is cutting up the moss, spreading it out so it grows nice and evenly, and then we'll be moving on to the last one. And now finally, the last terrarium, the moss is going to be cut up again, spread nice and evenly, to grow nice and evenly. I love the vibrant green of the moss compared to the super white stone. Now for the very final step of the terrarium is of course springtails, which should be added to any terrarium. These little critters will be eating all the mold and decaying matter in the terrarium, keeping the terrarium nice and clean and healthy. I'm tapping some springtails into every terrarium. Now to close up the terrarium, let's pop those lids right back on top, and then we'll call this terrarium finished. I love the small look of the terrarium and how neatly compact it is. We can also stack them on top of one another, and if I make a lot of these, I can just make a whole tower of them. If you like this video, go watch this one here. And of course, as always, thank you for watching.